Have you ever understood what someone said in English, but when it was your turn to answer, you couldn't find the words fast enough? You knew what you wanted to say, but your mind started searching for words. You started thinking about grammar. Maybe you translated the sentence in your head, and by the time you were ready to speak, the conversation had already moved on. Maybe this happens at work when someone asks you a simple question. Maybe you're talking to a friend, ordering coffee, answering a phone call, or simply trying to explain what you did today. And that moment can be frustrating because you understand English, but you don't always feel confident using it in real time. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone, and more importantly, your English is not the problem. You need more practice turning the English you understand into English you can actually use. Welcome back to Fluentcore English. I'm Gwen. Today, we're going to practice exactly that. This is a real-life English shadowing practice designed to help you train your ears, your mouth, and your brain to respond more naturally in everyday conversations. You'll practice useful American English sentences for situations you actually experience at work, with friends, on the phone, while shopping, getting around, and during everyday conversations. And before we begin, remember this. You don't need perfect English today. You don't need a huge vocabulary, and you don't need to understand every sentence perfectly on the first try. You just need to keep showing up and giving yourself a chance to speak. Because imagine what happens after enough practice. Someone asks you a question in English, and instead of translating first, you understand the idea and answer naturally. No long pause, no panic, no searching for the perfect sentence. Just a simple, confident response. That's the skill we're building today, and I want you to experience it right now. Imagine someone asks you, "How was your day?" Don't translate, just answer in English. Maybe you say, "It was pretty good. I was a little busy, but I'm feeling better now." That's your first small win. You didn't need a complicated sentence. You just responded. And that's exactly what we're going to practice throughout this lesson. I'll say each sentence naturally, give you a moment to speak out loud, and then we'll move forward. So don't just listen, use your voice. Some sentences will feel easy. Some may make you stop for a second. That's okay. Those moments are part of the training. Don't wait until you feel ready. Try, make mistakes, speak again, and keep moving. You don't need to remember every sentence today. What matters is getting your brain more comfortable with natural English, while your mouth gets used to saying it. So take a breath, get comfortable, and imagine yourself using these sentences in a real conversation. Listen carefully, speak out loud, and let your English become a little more natural with every sentence. Let's begin. Imagine yourself in a simple moment from your everyday life. You wake up in the morning, your mind is still quiet, and before the day gets busy, you take a breath and think about what you want to say in English. Maybe you have to talk to someone at work. Maybe you want to send a message to a friend. Maybe you need to explain something clearly. These small moments are actually perfect opportunities to practice because you're not studying random English. You're connecting English to things you already do. So as you listen, don't just hear the sentences. Picture yourself actually living the moment. Imagine the kitchen, the morning, the people around you, and the things you need to say. Let's start with something simple. I am improving my English every single day. I am becoming more confident when I speak. I am learning new words and using them in real conversations. I am getting better at expressing my thoughts. And I am becoming more comfortable speaking English. Say these sentences out loud if you can, and don't worry about sounding perfect. The goal is to make English feel familiar. When you connect a sentence with a real situation, it becomes much easier to remember and use later. Now imagine you're in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Instead of thinking about your morning in your native language and translating everything, try describing what you're actually doing in English. I am making my breakfast right now. I just woke up and I feel pretty good this morning. I am making some tea before I start my day. I am thinking about what I need to do today. I want to speak better English today, so I am going to practice. Notice what you're doing here. You're not trying to create complicated English. You're simply connecting your thoughts to the moment around you. That's a powerful habit for beginners because you already know what you're doing. You just need to give those thoughts simple English words. And if a sentence doesn't come to you immediately, don't panic. Give yourself a second. Use the words you know and keep moving. Fluency grows when you learn to continue even when your English isn't perfect. Now, let's make this situation a little more realistic. Imagine a coworker or a friend asks you, "How was your morning?" Instead of giving only one short answer, try connecting a few simple ideas. My morning was pretty calm today. I woke up early and made a cup of tea. I checked my messages and got ready for the day. I had a few things to do, but I didn't feel too rushed. Now you're doing something very important. You're not just learning individual sentences, you're learning how to connect simple thoughts. That's how real conversations work. One idea leads to another. And when you practice this regularly, speaking starts to feel less like building a sentence from scratch and more like following a familiar path. Now imagine someone asks you, "How is your English practice going?" This is a great opportunity to use slightly more natural English without making your sentence complicated. You could say, "My English practice has been pretty consistent lately. I'm focusing on building my vocabulary and speaking more clearly. I'm trying to use English every day, even when I only have a few minutes. I still make mistakes, but I feel more comfortable than I did before." These sentences are useful because they help you talk about your progress in a natural way. And notice something important. You don't need advanced words in every sentence to sound confident. Clear, natural English is often much more useful than complicated English. Now picture yourself walking to work or school. The air feels fresh, you're looking around, and instead of letting your mind switch back to your native language, start describing what you see. I am walking to work right now. The weather feels nice this morning. I can see people walking around me. I have a busy day ahead of me. I am thinking about what I need to finish today. Maybe I'll stop for coffee before I get to work. This kind of practice can happen anywhere. You can do it while you're walking, cooking, cleaning, waiting for the bus, or getting ready for bed. You don't need a textbook. You don't need an hour of free time. You just need a few real moments during your day. And here's a small challenge for you. Look around you right now and describe 3 things in English. It can be your phone, your room, your clothes, your desk, anything you can see. Then write one of those sentences in the comments. It could be as simple as "I am sitting in my room" or "I am holding my phone." Keep it simple. The goal isn't to impress anyone. The goal is to practice turning your real thoughts into English. And once you start doing that throughout your day, you'll notice something interesting. English begins to appear in moments when you weren't even planning to study. And that's where this practice starts becoming a part of your real life. Imagine yourself in a simple moment from your everyday life. You wake up in the morning, your mind is still quiet, and before the day gets busy, you take a breath and think about what you want to say in English. Maybe you have to talk to someone at work. Maybe you want to send a message to a friend. Maybe you need to explain something clearly. These small moments are actually perfect opportunities to practice because you're not studying random English. You're connecting English to things you already do. So as you listen, don't just hear the sentences. picture yourself actually living the moment. Imagine the kitchen, the morning, the people around you, and the things you need to say. Let's start with something simple. I am improving my English every single day. I am becoming more confident when I speak. I am learning new words and using them in real conversations. I am getting better at expressing my thoughts, and I am becoming more comfortable speaking English. Say these sentences out loud if you can, and don't worry about sounding perfect. The goal is to make English feel familiar. When you connect a sentence with a real situation, it becomes much easier to remember and use later. Now, imagine you're in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Instead of thinking about your morning in your native language and translating everything, try describing what you're actually doing in English. I am making my breakfast right now. I just woke up and I feel pretty good this morning. I am making some tea before I start my day. I'm thinking about what I need to do today. I want to speak better English today, so I am going to practice. Notice what you're doing here. You're not trying to create complicated English. You're simply connecting your thoughts to the moment around you. That's a powerful habit for beginners because you already know what you're doing. You just need to give those thoughts simple English words. And if a sentence doesn't come to you immediately, don't panic. Give yourself a second. Use the words you know and keep moving. Fluency grows when you learn to continue even when your English isn't perfect. Now, let's make the situation a little more realistic. Imagine a coworker or a friend asks you, "How was your morning?" Instead of giving only one short answer, try connecting a few simple ideas. My morning was pretty calm today. I woke up early and made a cup of tea. I checked my messages and got ready for the day. I had a few things to do, but I didn't feel too rushed. Now you're doing something very important. You're not just learning individual sentences, you're learning how to connect simple thoughts. That's how real conversations work. One idea leads to another. And when you practice this regularly, speaking starts to feel less like building a sentence from scratch and more like following a familiar path. Now, imagine someone asks you, "How is your English practice going?" This is a great opportunity to use slightly more natural English without making your sentence complicated. You could say, "My English practice has been pretty consistent lately. I'm focusing on building my vocabulary and speaking more clearly. I'm trying to use English every day, even when I only have a few minutes. I still make mistakes, but I feel more comfortable than I did before." These sentences are useful because they help you talk about your progress in a natural way. And notice something important. You don't need advanced words in every sentence to sound confident. Clear, natural English is often much more useful than complicated English. Now, picture yourself walking to work or school. The air feels fresh, you're looking around, and instead of letting your mind switch back to your native language, start describing what you see. I am walking to work right now. The weather feels nice this morning. I can see people walking around me. I have a busy day ahead of me. I am thinking about what I need to finish today. Maybe I'll stop for coffee before I get to work. This kind of practice can happen anywhere. You can do it while you're walking, cooking, cleaning, waiting for the bus, or getting ready for bed. You don't need a textbook. You don't need an hour of free time. You just need a few real moments during your day. And here's a small challenge for you. Look around you right now and describe 3 things in English. It can be your phone, your room, your clothes, your desk, anything you can see. Then write one of those sentences in the comments. It could be as simple as "I am sitting in my room" or "I am holding my phone." Keep it simple. The goal isn't to impress anyone. The goal is to practice turning your real thoughts into English. And once you start doing that throughout your day, you'll notice something interesting. English begins to appear in moments when you weren't even planning to study, and that's where this practice starts becoming a part of your real life. The weather is nice. I am thinking about the conversations I will have today. I want to express myself more clearly, and I am ready for a new day. As you repeat these sentences, don't worry about speaking quickly. Focus on the rhythm, the connection between the words, and the meaning behind each sentence. You're training yourself to speak naturally, not simply to memorize words. Now let's take that everyday practice one step further by adding some more natural vocabulary. The goal isn't to use difficult words just to sound advanced. The goal is to learn words that you can actually use when you're talking about your life. For example, imagine you're thinking about your English practice for the day. Today, I want to be more intentional with my English learning. I want to pay closer attention to the expressions people use. I want to notice how native speakers connect their ideas naturally, and I want to incorporate new vocabulary into my everyday conversations. Now shadow that naturally. Today, I want to be more intentional with my English learning. I want to pay closer attention to the expressions people use. I want to notice how native speakers connect their ideas naturally, and I want to incorporate new vocabulary into my everyday conversations. Notice those words: intentional, expressions, notice, incorporate. You don't need to memorize them separately. Learn them inside the sentences. When you hear a word in a real situation and then use it yourself, it becomes much easier to remember. And here's an important difference between knowing vocabulary and actually using vocabulary. You might recognize the word intentional when you hear it, but real progress happens when you can say, I want to be more intentional with my English practice without stopping to translate. That's the kind of connection we're building here. Now, imagine you meet a coworker or a friend after you haven't seen them for a little while. They smile and ask, "How have you been lately?" Instead of answering with only, "I'm good," try giving them a little more. "I have been doing pretty well. I've been focusing on improving my English and communicating more confidently. I've been trying to use English more often in everyday situations. I still make mistakes sometimes, but I feel more comfortable than I used to." Now shadow it naturally. "I have been doing pretty well. I've been focusing on improving my English and communicating more confidently. I've been trying to use English more often in everyday situations. I still make mistakes sometimes, but I feel more comfortable than I used to." Notice how much more natural the conversation feels when you connect a few simple ideas. You don't need to search for a complicated sentence. You can start with one simple thought and add another. "I'm doing well. I've been practicing. I'm feeling more confident." That's enough to keep a conversation moving. Now imagine you're sitting in a small cafe waiting for your order. Instead of just waiting, turn the moment into English practice. "I am sitting in a small cafe right now. It's pretty quiet and I can hear some music in the background. I'm waiting for my order and thinking about my day. There are a few people sitting around me. I'm practicing my English while I wait." Now say it again naturally. "I am sitting in a small cafe right now. It's pretty quiet and I can hear some music in the background. I'm waiting for my order and thinking about my day. There are a few people sitting around me. I'm practicing my English while I wait." Notice how much more natural the conversation feels when you connect a few simple ideas. You don't need to search for a complicated sentence. You can start with one simple thought and add another. I'm doing well. I've been practicing. I'm feeling more confident. That's enough to keep a conversation moving. Now imagine you're sitting in a small cafe waiting for your order. Instead of just waiting, turn the moment into English practice. I am sitting in a small cafe right now. It's pretty quiet and I can hear some music in the background. I'm waiting for my order and thinking about my day. There are a few people sitting around me. I'm practicing my English while I wait. This is one of the easiest ways to build speaking fluency because you're using English to describe something that's actually happening. You don't have to invent a story. You don't have to open a grammar book. Look around you, notice something, and describe it. If you're waiting for the bus, think, I'm waiting for the bus. It's taking a little longer than I expected. If you're making dinner, think, I'm making dinner. I'm a little tired, but I'm hungry. If you're getting ready for work, think, I need to hurry. I don't want to be late. These tiny moments may seem too simple to matter, but they are exactly the moments that help English become automatic. So take a breath and let yourself slow down for a moment. You are not trying to sound perfect, you're learning to stay with the language. And if you sometimes forget a word, don't immediately switch back to your first language. Try to explain the idea with simpler words. That skill is extremely useful in real conversations. For example, if you forget the word exhausted, you can simply say, I'm really tired. I have no energy. If you forget a word, keep the conversation alive. That's what confident speakers learn to do. And this is especially important around the B1, B2 level. You may already know hundreds or even thousands of English words, but knowing a word and being able to use it naturally are two different skills. That's why we're practicing through repetition, real situations, connected ideas, and natural phrases. The goal is not to make your English sound complicated. The goal is to make your English feel easier to use. And as you continue, you'll start noticing something interesting. The sentences you've practiced here begin to come back to you when you actually need them. Maybe you'll hear one at work. Maybe you'll use one with a friend. Maybe you'll remember one while ordering coffee or talking on the phone. And little by little, those sentences stop feeling like something you're studying and start feeling like something you naturally say. Now, imagine you're talking to a friend who asks about your goals. You've already practiced describing your daily life, your progress, and your feelings, so now let's bring those ideas together and make your English a little more expressive. You don't need complicated language. You just want to sound clear, confident, and natural. Shadow this with me, slowly. One of my main goals this year is to speak English more naturally. I want to express my ideas clearly and confidently in different situations. I also want to feel more comfortable using advanced vocabulary in everyday conversations. As you repeat these sentences, don't just focus on the individual words. Notice the structure. One of my main goals is I want to, I also want to. These are useful patterns because you can use them again and again with your own ideas. For example, your goal might be speaking more confidently at work. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you want to make new friends. You can take the same structure and make it yours. That's how vocabulary becomes usable instead of staying inside your memory. Now let's go one step deeper and talk about personal growth. Imagine someone asks you why you're working so hard on your English. You could say, I have been working on improving my fluency because I want to communicate without stopping to think about every sentence. I want English to come to me more naturally. I want speaking English to feel like a normal part of my daily life. Now shadow it naturally. I have been working on improving my fluency. I want English to come to me more naturally. I want speaking English to feel like a normal part of my daily life. Notice the phrase, I have been working on. This is a very useful pattern when you're talking about something you've been doing over time. You can use it for English, work, fitness, a project, or almost anything you're trying to improve. And that's the real goal of this practice, not simply learning advanced words, but learning how native speakers connect useful words and patterns to real situations. Now imagine you're at work or school and someone asks, "How's your week going?" Instead of answering with just, "It's good," try giving a little more detail. "This week has been quite productive. I've been focusing on improving my communication skills and paying closer attention to how people express themselves. I've also been trying to stay organized and make better use of my time." Now shadow it. "This week has been quite productive. I've been focusing on improving my communication skills and paying closer attention to how people express themselves. I've also been trying to stay organized and make better use of my time." Words like productive, communication skills, organized, and express themselves can make your English more expressive without making it sound unnatural. But remember, don't try to force advanced vocabulary into every conversation. If a simple word works, use it. Natural English is not about sounding complicated. It's about choosing the right words for the moment. Now, let's talk about something even more personal: your emotions. Imagine someone notices that you've been practicing English and asks, "Do you feel more confident now?" You could say, "I've been feeling more confident lately because my English practice has become more consistent. I feel more comfortable using new vocabulary. I'm also getting better at expressing my ideas clearly." Now, shadow it with me. "I've been feeling more confident lately. My English practice has become more consistent. I feel more comfortable using new vocabulary. I'm getting better at expressing my ideas clearly." Notice how these sentences allow you to talk about progress without pretending that everything is perfect. You can be improving and still make mistakes. You can feel more confident and still feel nervous sometimes. That's real language learning. And being able to talk about those feelings is an important part of becoming a stronger communicator. Now, imagine you meet someone you haven't seen for a while. They smile and ask, "What have you been up to?" Try this natural answer: "I've been keeping myself busy with work and learning. I've been trying to stay consistent with my English practice because I want to communicate more effectively in everyday conversations." Now shadow it. "I've been keeping myself busy with work and learning. I've been trying to stay consistent with my English practice because I want to communicate more effectively in everyday conversations." That phrase, "What have you been up to?" is especially useful because you can hear it in casual conversations when someone wants to know what you've been doing recently. So don't just memorize the answer. Remember the situation. You haven't seen a friend for a few weeks. They ask what you've been up to. Now you already have a natural response ready. That's how these sentences become useful in real life. Now, let's bring in a few more advanced words, but keep the sentences easy enough to actually use. Imagine you're talking about your listening practice. "Recently, I've been trying to enhance my listening skills by paying closer attention to intonation and rhythm of natural English. I've noticed that when I listen carefully, I understand more details and respond more confidently." Now shadow it naturally. "Recently, I've been trying to enhance my listening skills. I'm paying closer attention to intonation and rhythm. I've noticed that I understand more details when I listen carefully and respond more confidently when I understand the meaning." Here, enhance simply means improve. Intonation is the way your voice rises and falls when you speak, and rhythm is the natural pattern and timing of spoken English. You don't need to memorize dictionary definitions right now. Just remember the sentence and the situation where you would use it. That makes the vocabulary much easier to recall later. Now, imagine someone asks you, "What are you focusing on in your English practice these days?" This time, give yourself a more complete answer. "I'm focusing on expanding my vocabulary and improving the clarity of my speech. I'm learning phrases that I can actually use in everyday conversations. I want to communicate more effectively without overthinking every sentence. And notice how naturally these ideas connect. You're not just saying, I'm learning English, you're explaining what you're working on, why you're doing it, and how you want to use it. That's the difference between knowing English words and being able to use English to express yourself. And as we keep practicing, we're going to take that same idea into even more situations where you can use these expressions naturally. Now shadow it with me. I am focusing on expanding my vocabulary and improving the clarity of my speech. I am learning phrases that I can actually use in everyday conversations. I want to communicate my ideas clearly without overthinking every sentence. As you repeat these, notice how the ideas connect. You can use this same pattern to talk about almost any skill you're working on, what you're improving, what you're practicing, and what you want to achieve. Now let's bring that into your daily routine. Imagine it's a normal weekday. You're getting ready for work, checking your schedule, and thinking about everything you need to do. Instead of treating English as a separate study session, bring it into the moments that are already part of your day. Listen to this natural example. My days have been pretty balanced recently. I've been managing my time more carefully, and I'm trying to fit English into small moments throughout the day. Even when I'm walking, cooking, or relaxing, I try to think in English. Now shadow it naturally. My days have been pretty balanced recently. I've been managing my time more carefully, and I'm trying to fit English into small moments throughout the day. Even when I'm walking, cooking, or relaxing, I try to think in English. Notice the connectors here, even when, throughout the day, and recently. These small phrases help your English sound more connected because you're not just listing separate sentences, you're showing how your ideas relate to each other. And you can make this personal. Maybe you practice English while you're driving. Maybe you listen while you're making breakfast. Maybe you think in English while you're waiting for the bus. You don't need to change your entire routine, just attach English to moments that already happen. Now imagine you're talking to a friend who asks, "What motivates you to keep learning English?" This is a chance to talk about something personal in a natural way. I am motivated by the idea of becoming a more confident communicator. I want to express my thoughts clearly. I want to participate more actively in conversations, and I want to understand people without constantly worrying about missing something. Now shadow it with me. I am motivated by the idea of becoming a more confident communicator. I want to express my thoughts clearly. I want to participate more actively in conversations, and I want to understand people without constantly worrying about missing something. Notice how these sentences are not just about English. They're about your life, confidence, connection, being able to say what you really mean. That's why practicing meaningful sentences can be more powerful than simply memorizing random vocabulary. And here's a useful pattern you can take with you. I am motivated by the idea of. You could say, I am motivated by the idea of speaking confidently at work. Or you could say, I am motivated by the idea of traveling and communicating with people more easily. Or even, I am motivated by the idea of finally feeling comfortable speaking English. Now, let's make the practice a little more challenging. Imagine you're talking to someone about how you practice English. This time, don't think about one sentence at a time. Try to follow the whole idea. Every day, I try to challenge myself with new English experiences. Sometimes I listen to real conversations. Sometimes I read short articles or watch videos in English. And sometimes I practice speaking to myself. I've learned that consistency matters more than trying to do everything at once. Even a few minutes of focused practice can make a difference over time. Now, shadow it naturally. Every day, I try to challenge myself with new English experiences. Sometimes I listen to real conversations. Sometimes I read short articles. And sometimes I practice speaking to myself. I've learned that consistency matters more than trying to do everything at once. Even a few minutes of focused practice can make a difference over time. This is an important idea for anyone learning English. You don't need to have a perfect study routine. You need a routine you can actually continue. 5 focused minutes today are more useful than an hour of practice that you keep postponing. So when you don't have much time, don't tell yourself, "I can't practice today." Tell yourself, "I have 5 minutes. What can I do with them?" You can describe what you're doing. You can listen to a short conversation. You can repeat a few useful sentences. Or you can simply talk to yourself in English while you get ready for the day. Those small moments add up. Now imagine you're sitting with someone who asks you, "Why is English fluency important to you?" Don't give the first answer that comes to mind. Think about your real reason. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you want to communicate at work. Maybe you want to make friends. Maybe you simply want to feel less nervous when someone speaks English to you. Now put that feeling into words. Fluency is important to me because I want to connect with people from different places. I want to share my ideas and understand other people more clearly. I want to express myself without constantly worrying about mistakes. And I want English to give me more confidence in everyday situations. Now shadow it with me. Fluency is important to me because I want to connect with people from different places. I want to share my ideas and understand other people more clearly. I want to express myself without constantly worrying about mistakes. And I want English to give me more confidence in everyday situations. These sentences are useful because you can change just a few words and make them completely yours. And when you practice sentences that actually mean something to you, you're not only practicing English, you're practicing how to express your own life, your own goals, and your own thoughts in English. So take a moment and think about your reason. Why do you really want to speak English confidently? Keep that answer in your mind because as we continue, we're going to use that personal motivation to make your English sound even more natural in situations you may actually face. Now, I want you to practice a more descriptive kind of shadowing, using English to talk about something personal, your own progress. Listen first. When I think about my English journey, I feel proud of the progress I have made. I remember when simple sentences used to feel difficult. I used to hesitate because I was afraid of making mistakes. But now I can express myself with more confidence and explain my thoughts more clearly. Now shadow it with me. I feel proud of the progress I have made. I remember when simple sentences used to feel difficult. I used to hesitate because I was afraid of making mistakes. But now I can express myself with more confidence and explain my thoughts more clearly. Notice how this kind of English feels more personal. You're not simply describing an activity, you're talking about your experience, your feelings, and the changes you've noticed. And this is useful in real conversations. Someone might ask you, "How has your English improved?" You could say, "I understand more than I used to. I feel more comfortable speaking now. I still make mistakes, but I don't get as nervous as before. I'm learning to express my ideas more clearly." These are simple sentences, but they give you something valuable, the ability to talk about yourself naturally. So don't underestimate simple English. A sentence doesn't have to sound advanced to be powerful. It just needs to express what you really mean. As you continue, let each sentence connect to the one before it. Don't rush to remember everything. Listen, understand the idea, and then say it in your own voice. That's how you're building fluency layer by layer, thought by thought, sentence by sentence. And if you notice yourself making a mistake, don't stop the entire conversation. Simply correct yourself and keep going. You can say, I went yesterday. Actually, I mean, I went the day before. Or, I am working. I mean, I was working yesterday. Real speakers correct themselves sometimes. That's normal. Confidence doesn't mean never making mistakes. Confidence means knowing you can keep going even after a mistake. Now, take a breath and notice how much more comfortable these ideas can feel when you connect them to your own life. You are not trying to force English into your mind. You're giving your mind more chances to use English naturally. And with enough repetition, those familiar patterns become easier to reach when you actually need them. Now, imagine you're introducing yourself to someone you have just met. Maybe you're at work, at a class, at a community event, or simply having a conversation with someone new. Instead of giving only your name, try sharing a little about yourself. Listen to this natural example. I'm someone who enjoys learning new skills, and improving my English is one of my current priorities. I enjoy meeting new people and learning from different experiences. I believe strong communication can open new opportunities, so I try to practice consistently. Now, shadow it with me. I'm someone who enjoys learning new skills. Improving my English is one of my current priorities. I enjoy meeting new people and learning from different experiences. I believe strong communication can open new opportunities, so I try to practice consistently. Notice how much more natural this sounds than simply saying, I am learning English. You are giving the other person a little more information, which gives them something to respond to. That's an important conversation skill. When you share a little more, the other person has more opportunities to continue the conversation. For example, they might ask, what kind of skills are you learning? And now you have another chance to speak. You could say, I'm working on my English, but I'm also trying to become better at communicating with people. Simple, natural, and useful in real life. Now, let's bring this into a workplace situation. Imagine a colleague asks you, how do you manage everything when you have a busy schedule? You don't need a perfect answer, just connect a few clear ideas. I've been trying to organize my schedule more effectively. I usually start with the most important tasks. Then I divide bigger tasks into smaller steps so they feel easier to manage. I also take short breaks when I need to reset and focus again. Now, shadow it. I've been trying to organize my schedule more effectively. I usually start with the most important tasks. Then I divide bigger tasks into smaller steps so they feel easier to manage. I also take short breaks when I need to reset and focus again. These phrases are useful beyond English practice. You can use them when talking about work, studying, projects, or even your personal routine. And notice the phrase, I've been trying to. That's a very natural way to talk about something you're currently working on. I've been trying to wake up earlier. I've been trying to eat healthier. I've been trying to speak English more often. One structure can give you dozens of useful sentences. Now, imagine someone asks you, how do you usually practice English? This time, give them a clear and natural answer. I try to mix different activities. I listen to English, read short texts, practice shadowing, and spend time speaking. I've noticed that using different methods helps me understand English more deeply. It also helps me remember new vocabulary and use it more naturally. Now shadow it with me. I try to mix different activities. I listen, read, practice shadowing, and speak. I've noticed that using different methods helps me understand English more deeply. It also helps me remember new vocabulary and use it more naturally. And here's something important. You don't have to practice every skill for an hour. You can listen for a few minutes. You can shadow 5 sentences. You can describe what you're doing. You can have a short conversation with yourself. Small practice still counts. What matters most is that you keep coming back to English. Now, let's slow things down and bring all of this into a peaceful, everyday moment. Imagine you're walking through a quiet neighborhood in the evening. The day is almost over. The air is cool, the streets are calm, and you have a few quiet minutes to yourself. Instead of letting your mind automatically switch back to your native language, try describing the moment in English. Listen first. I'm taking a slow walk right now and enjoying the evening. The air feels cool and the street is pretty quiet. I can see a few people walking nearby. I'm thinking about my day and everything I accomplished. Some things went well and some things didn't go exactly as I planned, but I'm learning to be patient with myself. I'm still improving and I'm proud that I kept practicing today. Now shadow it naturally. I'm taking a slow walk right now and enjoying the evening. The air feels cool and the street is pretty quiet. I can see a few people walking nearby. I'm thinking about my day and everything I accomplished. Some things went well and some things didn't go exactly as I planned, but I'm learning to be patient with myself. I'm still improving and I'm proud that I kept practicing today. This is the kind of English you can take anywhere. You can use it while you're walking. You can use it while you're waiting. You can use it when you're alone with your thoughts. And the more often you connect English with real moments, real feelings, and real experiences, the less English feels like a subject you're studying, and the more it feels like a language you're actually living in. So stay with that feeling for a moment, because the next situation will take this practice a little closer to the kind of English you need when you're actually talking to someone. The evening feels peaceful outside, and I am using this quiet moment to practice English in my mind. I am thinking about how my day went and how I can make tomorrow a little better. Now shadow this with me. I am taking a slow walk. I am enjoying the evening. I am using this moment to practice English. I am thinking about my day. I want to improve tomorrow. As you repeat these sentences, notice how simple they are. You don't need advanced vocabulary to practice fluency. You can take ordinary moments from your life and turn them into English practice. And that's something you can do almost anywhere. Now let's make your sentences more connected by using a few natural connectors. These help you explain relationships between your ideas instead of speaking in separate sentences. Listen carefully. Even though I sometimes struggle with new vocabulary, I try to stay positive and keep practicing. As long as I continue learning, I know I will become more fluent and confident. Now shadow it. Even though I struggle sometimes, I try to stay positive. As long as I continue learning, I will become more fluent. These two patterns are especially useful. Even though helps you talk about a difficulty and what you do despite it. As long as helps you talk about a condition that you believe will lead to a result. You can make them personal. Even though I feel nervous, I try to speak. Even though I don't know every word, I keep listening. As long as I keep practicing, I know I will improve. These are not just grammar patterns, they're tools you can use to connect your thoughts more naturally. Now imagine you're talking about something you did recently. Maybe you watched an English video, listened to a podcast, or had a short conversation with someone. Listen to this example. Recently, I watched an English interview and tried to pay attention to the tone, pronunciation, and expressions the speakers used. It was a great way to understand natural English more clearly. Now shadow it with me. Recently, I watched an English interview. I paid attention to the tone and expressions. I noticed how the speakers connected their words. It helped me understand natural English better. Notice that you're not only saying what you did, you're also explaining what you noticed and what you learned from it. That's a powerful way to make your speaking more detailed. Instead of saying, I watched a video, you can say, I watched a video, paid attention to the way they spoke, and learned a few useful expressions. One simple idea becomes a complete thought. Now let's bring something even more personal into your English. Motivation. Imagine someone asks you, why do you want to keep improving your English? Think about your real answer. Maybe you want to communicate more easily. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you want to feel confident at work. Maybe you simply want to stop feeling nervous when someone speaks English to you. Now listen to this natural response. I want to keep improving my English because I enjoy expressing myself in another language. I love the feeling of understanding new words and then using them in real conversations. It gives me confidence, and it makes me feel proud of the progress I'm making. Now shadow it slowly. I want to keep improving my English. I enjoy expressing myself in another language. I love understanding new words. It gives me confidence, and it makes me feel proud of my progress. Notice how much more meaningful these sentences become when they connect to a real reason. Don't practice English only because you think you should. Think about what English could help you do. That personal reason can make it easier to stay consistent when motivation gets low. Now imagine someone asks you, how do you stay consistent with your English practice? Here's a natural answer. I try to make English a small part of everything I do. Even simple moments like walking, cooking, or resting can become opportunities to listen, think, or speak in English. I don't need to study for hours every day. I just try to keep English around me as much as possible. Now shadow it. I make English a small part of everything I do. Simple moments become opportunities. I listen. I think. I speak in English. I don't need to study for hours every day. I just try to stay connected to English. This is a much more realistic way to think about practice. You don't have to wait for the perfect time. If you have 10 minutes, use 10 minutes. If you have 2 minutes, use 2 minutes. The goal is to make English part of your routine instead of something you only do when you have a lot of free time. Now, let's practice describing your improvement more deeply. Listen first. I've noticed that the more I practice, the more comfortable I feel. My sentences come out more smoothly than they used to. I hesitate less, and I feel more confident when I speak with other people. Now shadow it. I feel more comfortable. My sentences are becoming smoother. I hesitate less. I feel more confident speaking with others. These sentences give you a simple way to talk about progress. And if you're not feeling confident yet, that's okay. You don't have to say, I'm fluent. You can honestly say, I'm becoming more comfortable. That is still progress. Now let's bring this into another real learning situation. Imagine you've spent some time listening to natural English. Maybe you're watching a conversation between two people. Instead of only listening to the words, pay attention to how those words sound together. Today, I focused on listening to natural conversations. I paid attention to pauses, stress, and the way speakers connected their words. It helped me understand how real English sounds, not just how English looks in a textbook. Now shadow it. I focused on listening. I paid attention to pauses and stress. I noticed how speakers connected their words. I understand real English better now. This is an important listening skill. When you listen to native speakers, you may not hear every word clearly. That's normal. Don't panic. Focus on the meaning, the rhythm, and the key words. Over time, your ears become better at recognizing the patterns. Now imagine someone asks you about your long-term English goal. Listen to this natural answer. My long-term goal is to communicate clearly and confidently in different situations. I want to express my ideas naturally. I want to understand people more easily. And I want to use advanced vocabulary without stopping to search for every word. Now shadow it. My long-term goal is to communicate clearly and confidently. I want to express my ideas naturally. I want to understand people more easily. I want to use advanced vocabulary without overthinking every sentence. This is how you can talk about your goals without sounding like you're memorizing a speech. Now, let's make the practice even more connected to your everyday life. Sometimes I practice by talking to myself in English. I describe what I am doing, how I am feeling, or what I am planning. If I'm making breakfast, I describe what I am doing. If I'm walking somewhere, I describe what I see. If I'm planning my day, I think about it in English. This helps me respond faster and makes English a more natural part of my daily routine. Now shadow it slowly. I talk to myself in English. I describe what I am doing. I describe how I am feeling. I describe what I am planning. It helps me think faster. English is becoming a natural part of my routine. This is one of the simplest ways to practice when you don't have someone to speak with. You don't need another person every time. Sometimes a few minutes of honest self-talk can give you a chance to practice vocabulary, sentence structure, and confidence all at once. And notice something now. You're not only repeating sentences, you're learning how to connect actions, feelings, reasons, and opinions in English. That's what makes your speaking more flexible. You might start with, I'm tired. Then you can grow the thought. I'm tired because I had a busy day, but I'm going to rest for a while and practice some English later. One simple thought becomes a connected idea, and that's the kind of progress that helps you move from short answers toward real conversations. So as you continue shadowing, don't worry about making every sentence perfect. Listen, understand, repeat. Then try to make the idea your own. With every repetition, you're giving your brain another chance to recognize the pattern and use it later when you need it. And now, imagine someone asks you a question that matters to your English journey. What helps you stay motivated when learning English? Listen to this natural response. I stay motivated because I can feel myself improving each day. I understand a little more. I speak a little more clearly. I use new vocabulary with more confidence. And even when I have a difficult day, I remind myself that small progress is still progress. Now shadow it with me.
Now shadow it with me. I stay motivated because I can feel myself improving. I understand a little more each day. I speak more clearly than I used to. I can use new vocabulary with more confidence, and I don't expect myself to be perfect. I just want to keep moving forward. These sentences help you express your learning mindset in a natural and confident way. And notice something important. You are not only talking about English, you are talking about your experience, your effort, and the changes you can actually feel. That makes your English sound more personal. Now let's bring that feeling into another everyday moment. Imagine you're sitting at your desk, taking a short break from work or studying. Everything is quiet for a moment and you start thinking about your progress. Listen. Sometimes I like to take a moment and think about how far I have come. I remember when English felt difficult and I was afraid of making mistakes. Now I can express my opinions more easily and I don't feel as nervous as I used to. Now shadow it slowly. I like to take a moment. I think about how far I have come. English felt difficult before. I used to worry about making mistakes. Now I express my opinions more easily. These kinds of reflections are useful because real conversations are not only about what you do. Sometimes you talk about how you feel, what has changed, and what you have learned along the way. And the more you practice expressing those ideas, the easier it becomes to talk about yourself naturally. Now imagine someone asks you a simple question. Why do you practice shadowing? Listen to this natural response. Shadowing helps me because it trains my mind to recognize natural English patterns. I don't just learn new phrases, I learn how those phrases sound, connect, and work in real conversations. It also helps me speak with less hesitation. Now shadow it with me. Shadowing trains my mind. I learn natural English patterns. I learn how to use phrases in real conversations. I speak with less hesitation. And here's something you can remember. Don't treat shadowing like memorizing a speech. Listen to the sentence. Notice the rhythm. Repeat it. Then imagine yourself actually saying it to someone. That small mental step can make your practice much more meaningful. Now let's bring English into another ordinary moment. Imagine you're messaging a friend and they ask, "How was your day?" Instead of answering with only one word, try giving them a little more information. Listen closely. My day has been pretty productive. I finished most of my tasks on time, practiced some English, and took a few moments to relax. It was a busy day, but I feel good about what I got done. Now shadow it. My day has been pretty productive. I finished most of my tasks on time, practiced some English, and took a few moments to relax. It was a busy day, but I feel good about what I got done. Notice how much more natural that sounds than simply saying, "My day was good." You were giving a reason, adding details, and sharing a feeling. That is how simple English becomes real communication. Now let's move into something every English learner experiences, moments when you don't understand everything. Imagine you're listening to someone with a different accent, or they're speaking a little faster than you're used to. Listen to this natural response. Sometimes I find certain expressions or accents difficult to understand, but I try to stay patient. If I don't understand something, I ask the person to repeat it instead of pretending I understood. I remind myself that every difficult moment is another chance to improve. Now shadow it with me. Some expressions are difficult. Some accents are difficult to understand, but I stay patient. I can ask someone to repeat themselves. Every challenge is a chance to learn. This is an important communication skill. You don't need to understand every single word to stay in a conversation. You can say, "Could you say that again? I didn't catch that. Could you speak a little slower?" These simple sentences give you control when a conversation becomes difficult, and that confidence matters. Because sometimes the problem isn't your English. The problem is the fear that you have to understand everything perfectly. You don't. You just need to know how to keep the conversation moving. Now let's bring that same idea into your emotions. There will be days when you feel tired. There will be days when you don't feel motivated. And there may be days when English feels harder than usual. Listen to this natural expression. There are days when I feel a little tired or distracted, but I still try to practice for a few minutes. I don't always feel motivated, but I know that small efforts help me stay on track. Now shadow it with me. I feel tired sometimes. I feel distracted sometimes, but I still practice for a few minutes. I don't always feel motivated. Small efforts keep me on track. This is a much healthier way to think about consistency. You don't have to have a perfect day to practice English. Sometimes 5 focused minutes are enough to keep the habit alive. The goal is not to do everything, the goal is to keep going. Now imagine the day is coming to an end. You've finished your work, you're preparing dinner, and you're thinking about everything that happened today. This is another perfect moment to practice English without sitting down for a lesson. Listen, I am cooking right now. The kitchen smells really good. I am thinking about my day while I cook. I had a busy day, but I'm finally getting some time to relax. I'm also practicing English in my mind because I want to make English part of my everyday life. Now shadow it with me. I am cooking right now. The kitchen smells really good. I am thinking about my day while I cook. I had a busy day, but I'm finally getting some time to relax. I'm also practicing English in my mind because I want to make English part of my everyday life. And notice what just happened. You turned an ordinary moment into English practice. You didn't need a textbook. You didn't need a difficult topic. You simply described what was happening around you. That's one of the most powerful habits you can build, because when English becomes connected to your real life, you stop seeing it as something you only study. You start using it. And once you start using it in these small moments, your thoughts can begin to flow more naturally. That simple kitchen moment showed you something important. You don't need extra time to practice English. You can use the moments you already have. So now, let's take that habit one step further and bring more advanced vocabulary into those same everyday situations. The goal is not to use complicated words just to sound impressive. The goal is to choose words that help you express your real thoughts more clearly and naturally. Listen. I am trying to be more consistent and disciplined with my English practice. Even when life gets busy, I try to maintain a steady routine. Now shadow it with me. I am becoming more consistent. I am becoming more disciplined with my practice. I maintain a steady routine. These words are useful because you can use them far beyond English learning. You can talk about your work, your fitness, your studies, or any goal you're trying to reach. And there's an important difference here. You don't need to force advanced vocabulary into every sentence. Instead, learn a useful word, understand how people actually use it, and then bring it into a situation that is real for you. Now, imagine you've just finished a long day. You're tired, but you also feel good because you accomplished something. Listen, I am feeling a little tired, but I am satisfied with what I accomplished today. I did my best, and I am proud of the progress I am making. Now shadow it. I am tired, but I am satisfied. I did my best today. I am proud of my progress. These sentences give you a natural way to talk about both your feelings and your achievements, and that matters because real conversations are rarely just about facts. People talk about how their day felt, what went well, what was difficult, and what they hope to do next. Now imagine someone asks you, "How do you feel about your English these days?" Listen to a natural answer. I feel like my English is becoming clearer. I am choosing better words, speaking with more confidence, and understanding conversations more quickly. Now shadow it with me. My English is becoming clearer. I am choosing better words. I am speaking with more confidence. I understand conversations more quickly. Notice the structure. You're not simply saying, "My English is better." You're explaining how it is getting better. That small change makes your answers sound more complete and natural. Now let's make it more personal. Imagine someone asks you what you appreciate about your English learning journey. Listen, I am grateful for every opportunity I get to practice English. Even small conversations help me grow and become a better speaker. Now shadow it. I am grateful for every opportunity. Small conversations help me grow. I am becoming a better speaker. And remember, an opportunity to practice doesn't have to be a long conversation. It could be ordering coffee, it could be answering a question at work, it could be talking to a friend, it could even be saying a few sentences to yourself while you're walking home. Those small moments matter because they connect English with situations you actually experience.
Now let's take this a little deeper. Think about the reason you're learning English in the first place. Maybe you want to feel more comfortable at work. Maybe you want to travel without feeling nervous. Maybe you want to talk to people from different backgrounds. Or maybe you simply want to feel proud when you hear yourself speaking English naturally. Listen to this longer example. Sometimes I think about how different my life could feel when I become more fluent. I will be able to communicate more freely, travel with more confidence, and connect with people without worrying so much about making mistakes. That thought motivates me to keep practicing, even on the days when I don't feel like it. Now, shadow it with me. When I become more fluent, I will communicate more freely. I will travel with more confidence. I will connect with people more easily. I won't worry so much about making mistakes. That thought motivates me to keep practicing. This kind of practice does something important. You're not just learning vocabulary, you're connecting English with a reason that matters to you. And when a sentence has meaning behind it, it's much easier to remember and use naturally. So when you learn a new word like consistent, don't just memorize the definition, put it into your life. I want to be more consistent with my English practice. When you learn disciplined, connect it to a real goal. I am trying to be more disciplined with my routine. When you learn satisfied, connect it to a real feeling. I feel satisfied because I finished my work. That's how advanced vocabulary becomes active vocabulary. You don't just recognize the word when you hear it, you start reaching for it when you actually need to express something. And now, let's stay in that calm, reflective moment and take this practice one step further. And that calm moment is exactly where we can make this practice more useful. Right now, I want you to imagine that you finally have a little time for yourself. Maybe you've finished work, put your phone down for a moment, and you're simply sitting somewhere quiet. Listen, I am taking a little time for myself. I am sitting quietly, listening, and letting the English flow naturally. I don't need to rush. I just need to stay present and keep practicing. Now shadow it with me. I am taking time for myself. I am sitting quietly. English is flowing naturally. I don't need to rush. I stay present. I keep practicing. Notice how calm these sentences feel. You can use this kind of English when you're talking about your routine, your feelings, or even your mindset. And that is important because fluency isn't only about speaking quickly. Sometimes sounding natural means knowing how to slow down, explain yourself, and stay comfortable with the language. Everything you've been shadowing is building that ability little by little. Your pronunciation becomes more familiar. Your vocabulary becomes easier to access. Your confidence grows because you're repeatedly experiencing yourself using English successfully. And something else is happening in the background. The more you listen to natural English, the more your brain starts noticing patterns. You begin to recognize how words connect, where speakers naturally stress certain words, and how a sentence sounds as a complete thought. That's why shadowing can feel different after regular practice. At first, you're simply following the words. Later, you start feeling the rhythm. And eventually, some of those patterns begin to feel familiar before you even think about them. That's the kind of progress we're building here. Not overnight perfection, small, consistent layers that become stronger over time. Now let's bring that into a real conversation. Imagine someone asks you, What do you enjoy about learning English? Listen to this natural answer. I enjoy learning English because it allows me to connect with people from different cultures. I like discovering new expressions, understanding how sentences flow, and using those phrases in real conversations. Now shadow it slowly. I enjoy learning English. It allows me to connect with people. I like discovering new expressions. I like understanding how sentences flow. I use those phrases in real conversations. These are useful structures because you can change just a few words and use them for many different topics. For example, I enjoy learning English because it helps me communicate. I enjoy my job because it allows me to meet new people. I like reading because I can discover new ideas. The structure stays familiar while your ideas change. That's one of the easiest ways to make vocabulary more useful instead of simply memorizing isolated words. Now let's move into another moment that probably feels very familiar. Imagine you've had a long day. You've finished your work, you've dealt with small tasks and conversations, and now you're finally heading to your room to relax. Listen, I am finally taking a moment to relax. Today was full of small tasks, conversations, and learning moments. I feel tired, but I also feel proud of myself for staying committed to my English practice. Now shadow it with me. I am taking a moment to relax. Today was full of small tasks. There were conversations and learning moments. I feel tired, but I feel proud of myself. I stayed committed to my English practice. Notice how these sentences tell a small story. You have a situation, you have a feeling, and you have a reason. That combination makes your English sound much more natural than simply listing short sentences. So when you're practicing on your own, try asking yourself 3 simple questions. What happened? How did I feel? Why did I feel that way? Those 3 questions can help you turn an ordinary day into speaking practice. Now let's focus on another skill that can make a huge difference in real conversations: listening for meaning. Imagine someone is speaking to you and you don't understand every single word. Instead of panicking, listen for the main idea. Here's how you can describe your progress. My listening skills are getting better because I am paying more attention to tone, rhythm, and pronunciation. I'm learning to focus on meaning instead of thinking about every single word. Now shadow it with me. My listening is getting better. I pay attention to tone, rhythm, and pronunciation. I focus on meaning. I don't worry about every single word. This is especially useful when you're talking with someone who speaks quickly or has an accent you're not used to. You don't have to catch every word to understand the message. Listen for the important words. Notice the emotion, look at the situation, and let the meaning come together. That habit can help you respond more naturally instead of getting stuck on one unfamiliar word. Now let's imagine a small success. Maybe you watched an English video that used to feel difficult. Maybe someone said something quickly, and this time you understood it. Or maybe you had a short conversation and noticed that you didn't translate as much as before. Listen closely. Today, I understood a conversation that used to feel difficult for me. At first, I wasn't sure if I could follow it, but I stayed focused and understood most of what the person was saying. That moment made me feel confident and excited. It reminded me that progress is happening, even when I don't notice it every day. Now shadow it gently. I understood a conversation today. It felt easier than before. I stayed focused. I understood most of it. I felt confident. Progress is happening, even when I don't notice it. And I want you to remember that last idea. Sometimes progress is quiet. You may not wake up one morning and suddenly feel fluent. Instead, you notice small changes. You understand a sentence faster, you find a word without searching for it, you answer a question without translating first. You feel a little less nervous. Those moments may seem small, but they are signs that your English is becoming more natural. So the next time you notice one of those moments, don't ignore it. Pause for a second and recognize it, because those small wins are exactly what keep you moving forward.
And those small wins are exactly what you can carry into your next day. Instead of waiting until tomorrow to start again, you can use today's practice to prepare your mind for the conversations and situations that are coming next. Imagine it is the evening and you're thinking about tomorrow. Listen. I am preparing my thoughts for tomorrow. I want to communicate clearly and confidently, and I know my English practice today will help me express myself better. Now, shadow it with me. I am preparing for tomorrow. I want to communicate clearly and confidently. Today's practice will help me express myself better. This is a useful habit because you're connecting English with something real, your plans for tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow you have a conversation at work. Maybe you need to make a phone call. Maybe you'll meet someone new. Instead of waiting for that moment and hoping the words come naturally, you can prepare your mind with simple English beforehand. Now let's bring in some of the advanced vocabulary you've been practicing. Listen, I am becoming more aware of how English works. I am noticing patterns, recognizing useful expressions, and understanding conversations more naturally. Now shadow it. I am becoming more aware. I notice patterns. I recognize useful expressions. I understand conversations more naturally. These phrases are powerful because they help you talk about your learning process in a more detailed way. And notice how the vocabulary is still connected to real life. Aware can help you talk about what you notice. Recognize can help you talk about things you understand when you see or hear them again. Patterns can help you explain repeated ways that English is used. You don't need to memorize these words in isolation. Learn them inside sentences, and then bring those sentences into your own life. Now imagine you're talking to a friend who is also learning English. Maybe they feel frustrated because they aren't improving as quickly as they hoped. You want to encourage them. Listen, I always tell people that learning English is a journey. It takes patience, consistency, and a positive mindset, but every step brings you closer to fluency. Now, shadow it with me. Learning English is a journey. It takes patience. It takes consistency. A positive mindset helps. Every step brings me closer to fluency. And this is something worth remembering when your progress feels slow. You may think, I'm practicing, but I'm still making mistakes. That's okay. Mistakes don't mean you're moving backward, they mean you're using the language. And every time you notice a mistake, understand something new, or express an idea a little more easily, you're building another layer of confidence. Now let's slow everything down for a moment. Imagine you're sitting somewhere quiet after a long day. Maybe the lights are low, your phone is nearby, and you finally have a few peaceful minutes for yourself.
Listen. Sometimes when I am practicing English, I like to sit quietly and let the language flow around me. I listen to the sounds, feel the rhythm of the sentences, and try to follow along without putting too much pressure on myself. It helps me relax and learn at the same time. Now shadow it. I sit quietly. I let the language flow around me. I listen to the sounds. I feel the rhythm. I follow without stress. I relax and learn. This kind of practice is valuable because you are training more than pronunciation. You're learning to stay comfortable while listening to English, and comfort matters. If you're constantly worried about every word, every grammar rule, or every mistake, your mind becomes tense. But when you relax and focus on the meaning, English becomes easier to process. So, during shadowing, don't chase perfection. Stay with the sentence. Listen to the rhythm. Follow the speaker. Let yourself make mistakes. Then keep going. Now let's take that idea one step deeper and talk about the person you're becoming through this practice. Listen. I am becoming the kind of person who enjoys learning, who likes exploring new ideas, and who feels proud of every small step forward. English is becoming a part of my life, not just a subject I study. Now shadow it with me. I enjoy learning. I like exploring new ideas. I feel proud of every step. English is becoming part of my life. That last sentence is especially important. English is becoming part of my life, because the goal isn't to spend your whole life studying English. The goal is to use English while you're living your life. When you wake up, when you make breakfast, when you go to work, when you talk to a friend, when you watch something, when you think about your plans. Those ordinary moments can become small opportunities to use the language. Now let's imagine one of those peaceful moments again. Maybe it's evening and everything around you has finally become quiet. Listen. The house is quiet right now, and I am using this peaceful moment to practice my English. When everything is calm, it becomes easier for me to focus, listen carefully, and notice the way English sounds. Now shadow it. The house is quiet right now. I am using this peaceful moment to practice my English. It is easier for me to focus. I listen carefully. I notice how English sounds. And as you continue, try to notice one small change in yourself. Are you hearing the sentences differently now? Are you noticing the rhythm more easily? Are some expressions beginning to feel familiar? Because those small changes are exactly what we want to build. And from here, we can take this practice into even more natural situations where you'll need to use everything you've been learning. And from that quiet moment of noticing your progress, let's bring your attention back to something very practical, the kind of English you actually want to speak in real life. Imagine someone asks you, "What kind of English do you want to speak?" Listen. I want to speak English that sounds natural, confident, and clear. I want to express myself smoothly without stopping or constantly searching for words. Now shadow it with me. I want to sound natural. I want to sound confident. I want to speak clearly. I want to express myself smoothly. I don't want to stop every few seconds to search for words. These are more than speaking goals. They give you a clear direction, because fluency isn't about trying to sound impressive. It's about being able to say what you mean without feeling trapped by the language. And that's exactly what we're building with every sentence you shadow. Now let's connect everything you've been practicing into one longer thought. Listen carefully. Each time I shadow a sentence, my brain becomes more familiar with natural English. Each time I repeat a phrase, my mouth becomes more comfortable with the sounds and rhythm. And each time I practice, I become a little more confident and fluent than before. Now shadow it with me. Each time I shadow, my brain becomes more familiar with English. Each time I repeat, my mouth feels more comfortable. Each time I practice, I become more confident. Each day, English feels a little more natural. This is why repetition matters. The first time you hear a sentence, you may simply understand it. The second time, you may notice the pronunciation. After several repetitions, the structure starts to feel familiar. And eventually, when you need that structure in a real conversation, your brain doesn't have to build everything from the beginning. It already has something to work with. That's the real value of shadowing. Now imagine you're ending your day, you finished everything you needed to do, and before you put your phone away and go to sleep, you give yourself a few quiet minutes to practice. Listen, I am ending my day with some gentle English practice. It feels good to know that even a few minutes can help me grow and move closer to my goals. I don't need to practice for hours, I just need to keep showing up. Now shadow it with me. I am ending my day with practice. A few minutes can help me grow. I don't need to practice for hours, I just need to stay consistent. I am moving closer to fluency. And notice something. You don't have to wait for the perfect day to practice English. A busy day can still give you 5 minutes. A short walk can become listening practice. Cooking dinner can become speaking practice. Waiting for your coffee can become vocabulary practice. The goal is to make English fit into your life instead of waiting for your life to give you more time for English. And every time you come back to practice, you're building something valuable, familiarity. Your listening becomes sharper, your pronunciation becomes more comfortable, your speaking becomes smoother, and little by little, your confidence begins to catch up with your knowledge. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to keep showing up. And right now, that's exactly what you're doing. Now, imagine someone asks you, how do you stay focused while learning English? Listen to this natural response.
I try to stay focused by creating small, simple goals. I don't put too much pressure on myself. I just practice a little every day and trust the process. Now, shadow it with me. I stay focused with small goals. I don't put too much pressure on myself. I practice a little every day. I trust the process. This is useful language for real conversations because you're not only describing what you do, you're explaining how you approach something. And you can use the same structure for almost any goal. I stay motivated by celebrating small wins. I stay organized by planning my day. I stay focused by doing one thing at a time. Simple structures like these can make your English sound much more natural. Now, let's step outside for a moment. Imagine you're sitting on a bench in a park, walking through your neighborhood, or simply enjoying some fresh air. You've been practicing English for a while, and suddenly you realize that something feels different. Listen. Right now, I am enjoying the fresh air and thinking about how much I have improved. I understand more expressions than I used to. I speak with more confidence, and I feel more connected to the language. Now, shadow it. I am enjoying the fresh air. I have improved. I understand more expressions. I speak more confidently. I feel more connected to the language. This is another important part of fluency, being able to talk about change. You can say, I've improved, I feel more comfortable, I understand more than before, I don't hesitate as much. These are simple sentences, but they allow you to talk about something deeply personal, your own progress. Now, imagine something even better. You're having a conversation with someone and they suddenly compliment your English. Maybe they say, your English sounds really good. Instead of freezing or simply saying thank you can keep the conversation going. Listen, thank you. That means a lot. I've been practicing consistently, and I'm trying to use more natural expressions every day. I still make mistakes sometimes, but I feel much more comfortable now. Now, shadow it with me. Thank you. That means a lot. I've been practicing consistently. I'm trying to use more natural expressions every day. I still make mistakes sometimes, but I feel much more comfortable now. These are real-life responses you can actually use. And notice how the conversation continues naturally. You accept the compliment, you explain what you've been doing, and then you share a little about your progress. That's how you turn a short answer into a real conversation. Now, imagine the situation is reversed. Someone you know is learning English, but they're afraid to speak. Maybe they tell you, I understand English, but I'm afraid of making mistakes. Think about what you would say to them. Listen, don't worry about making mistakes. Mistakes are part of the journey. You don't have to speak perfectly to communicate. Start with what you know, keep your sentences simple, and give yourself permission to learn as you speak. Every conversation gives you another chance to grow. Now, shadow it. Don't worry about making mistakes. Mistakes are part of the journey. I don't have to speak perfectly to communicate. I can start with simple English. I can keep learning as I speak. And sometimes that is exactly the reminder we need, because confidence doesn't usually come before you speak. It grows because you keep speaking. You try, you make a mistake, you learn, you try again. And one day you realize that the situation that used to make you nervous doesn't feel quite as difficult anymore. So as we continue, keep that idea with you. Don't wait until you feel completely ready. Use the English you have. Stay in the conversation, keep listening, keep shadowing, and let every sentence take you one small step closer to the kind of English you want to speak. And that is the mindset I want you to carry into the next part of this practice. You don't need to wait for a perfect environment or a long study session. The more naturally you bring English into your day, the more comfortable your brain becomes with using it. Now, let's turn that idea into a routine you can actually follow. Imagine you're explaining to someone how you practice English every day. Listen. I try to include English naturally throughout my day. I listen while I cook, I think in English while I walk, and sometimes I talk to myself when I am alone. Now shadow it with me. I include English throughout my day. I listen while I cook. I think in English while I walk. I talk to myself when I am alone. These are simple habits, but they solve a common problem. Many learners only use English when they sit down to study. Then they close the book, leave the lesson, and go back to their normal language. Instead, try connecting English to things you're already doing. You're cooking? Describe what you're doing. You're walking, describe what you see. You're getting ready for work, think about what you need to do. You're waiting for someone, ask yourself a simple question in English. You don't need more time, you need more small moments. Now imagine you're on your way to work or school. Maybe you're walking, driving, or sitting on the bus. You're thinking about your day and preparing yourself for the conversations ahead. Listen, I am thinking about how I want to express myself today. I want to speak clearly and confidently. I want to listen carefully and use new vocabulary whenever I can. Now shadow it slowly. I have been trying to become more aware of how fluent speakers express themselves. I pay attention to their tone, their pauses, and the natural rhythm they use, and I try to bring those patterns into my own speaking. Now shadow it slowly. I have been trying to become more aware of how fluent speakers express themselves. I pay attention to their tone, their pauses, and the natural rhythm they use, and I try to bring those patterns into my own speaking. This is an important part of shadowing. Don't copy only the words. Notice the way the sentence moves. Notice which words sound stronger. Notice where the speaker naturally pauses. Notice how words connect together. When you start hearing these details, English stops sounding like a long stream of separate words. You begin to hear it as connected speech, and that can make both listening and speaking feel much easier. Now, let's slow everything down again.
Imagine you're sitting by a window after a long day. Maybe you're on your bed, sitting in a quiet room, or simply taking a few minutes before going to sleep. Listen, this moment feels peaceful, and I am using this moment feels peaceful, and I am using this peaceful moment to train my English. I am not rushing, I am not stressing. I am simply giving myself time to learn and grow. Now, shadow it with me. This moment is peaceful. I am using it to train my English. I am not rushing. I am not stressing. I am giving myself time to grow. And remember, you don't have to force fluency. You can't force your brain to become comfortable overnight. You build comfort through repeated exposure. You listen, you repeat, you notice, you use the language, and then you come back and do it again. That is why the small moments matter so much. Now let's bring this into one of the most difficult situations for many learners, a longer conversation. Imagine someone asks you, "What do you find challenging about English?" Listen. Sometimes I struggle with long conversations because I want to respond quickly. I understand what someone is saying, but sometimes I need a moment to organize my thoughts. So I remind myself that it's okay to slow down. Clarity is more important than speed. Now, shadow it. Sometimes I struggle with long conversations. I want to respond quickly. Sometimes I need a moment to think. It's okay to slow down. Clarity is more important than speed. That last sentence is worth remembering. Clarity is more important than speed. You don't need to answer immediately just to sound fluent. You can say, "Let me think for a moment." That's a good question. I'm not sure how to explain it, but these phrases give your brain a little space while keeping you inside the conversation. And that is a skill you can use in real life, especially when a conversation suddenly becomes more difficult. And that is exactly why you don't need to panic when a conversation feels difficult. You can slow down, focus on the main idea, and give yourself a moment to respond. I struggle with long conversations sometimes. I remind myself that it is okay to think. I don't have to answer immediately. Clarity is more important than speed. Now let's take that idea and turn it into another listening skill that you can use in real conversations. When you're listening to someone speak English, you may hear a word you don't know. It's tempting to stop and think about that one word, but try something different. Listen for the overall meaning. Listen. When I listen to English, I try to focus on the overall meaning, not just the individual words. If I don't understand one word, I don't let it stop me. I use the situation, the other words, and the speaker's tone to understand the main idea. Now shadow it with me. I focus on the overall meaning. I don't focus on every single word. If I miss a word, I keep listening. I use the context to understand the idea. Conversations become easier to follow. I feel more confident with different accents. This is a powerful listening habit because real conversations don't always give you perfect, clear English. People speak quickly, they connect words, they use different accents. Sometimes they use expressions you've never heard before. If you stop every time you hear something unfamiliar, the conversation can quickly become overwhelming. But if you keep listening for the main idea, you give your brain more information to work with, and often you understand more than you thought you did. So, the next time you hear an unfamiliar word, don't immediately panic. Ask yourself,
What is this person trying to say? That one question can completely change the way you listen. Now, let's bring this practice into the end of your day. Imagine you finished everything you needed to do. Maybe you're getting ready for bed, putting your phone away, or simply sitting quietly for a few minutes. Listen. I am winding down for the day, and I am happy that I practiced my English. Even small moments like this help me stay disciplined and motivated. I know I don't have to do everything today. I just need to keep building the habit. Now, shadow it. I am winding down. I am happy I practiced. Small moments help me stay disciplined. They keep me motivated. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to keep going. And that's what consistency really looks like. It doesn't always look like an hour of studying. Sometimes it looks like 5 minutes of focused shadowing. Sometimes it's listening to English while you're cooking. Sometimes it's thinking in English while you're walking. Sometimes it's simply using one new phrase in a real conversation. Those moments may feel small, but they add up. Now, let's connect that idea to your long-term progress. Listen carefully. The more I listen, the more I understand. The more I speak, the more confident I become. And the more I practice, the closer I get to real fluency. Now, shadow it with me. The more I listen, the more I understand. The more I speak, the more confident I become. And the more I practice, the closer I get to fluency. And notice the pattern. The more I listen, the more I understand. The more I practice, the easier it becomes. You can use this structure to talk about many areas of your life. The more I practice, the better I feel. The more I speak, the less nervous I become. The more I listen, the easier English feels. This is not just useful grammar, it's a natural way to express cause and progress in everyday English. And now, take a moment to notice where you are. At the beginning, you may have been listening carefully just to understand the sentences. Now you're listening for rhythm. You're noticing connected speech. You're paying attention to vocabulary. You're thinking about meaning. And you're practicing how the sentences feel when you say them. That is a lot of valuable work happening at the same time. Your understanding is becoming deeper. Your speaking rhythm is becoming steadier. Your vocabulary is becoming easier to access. And your confidence is growing through experience. Not because someone told you you're improving, but because you're actually experiencing yourself using English. That's an important difference. Confidence becomes stronger when your brain starts thinking, I can do this. And every successful repetition gives your brain another reason to believe it. Now, let's take everything we've practiced and bring it into a real conversation. Imagine you're sitting with someone you know, having a relaxed conversation at the end of the day. They look at you and ask, how has English changed your daily life? Don't rush your answer. Think about your own experience. Maybe English has helped you feel more comfortable at work. Maybe you understand videos more easily. Maybe you can communicate with people you couldn't communicate with before. Or maybe you're simply less afraid to speak than you used to be. Listen to this natural response. I feel like English has changed the way I communicate every day. I understand more when I listen, I feel more confident when I speak, and I don't worry as much about making mistakes. And now, let's take that response a little deeper. Now, shadow with me. I like watching how fluent speakers express themselves. I pay attention to their body language. I listen to their tone and expressions. I notice how they connect their words. I learn something new from every conversation. And notice what you're doing here. You're not trying to copy every single thing a fluent speaker does. You're simply training your ear to notice patterns that you can use later. That is an important part of becoming a stronger speaker.
When you hear a useful phrase, don't just understand it and move on. Pause for a moment. Listen to it again. Say it yourself. Then imagine a real situation where you could use it. That small process turns passive listening into active learning. Now let's make this even more practical. Imagine you're watching a video and you hear someone say, "I'm not really sure, but I'll look into it." You may understand the sentence, but now think about where you could actually use it. Maybe a coworker asks you about something you don't know. Instead of freezing, you can say, "I'm not really sure, but I'll look into it." That is natural English you can take directly into real life. Let's try another one. Someone asks you a question, but you need a moment to think. Instead of staying silent, you can say, "Let me think about that for a second." Now shadow it. "Let me think about that for a second." I don't need to answer immediately. I can take a moment and think. I can stay calm and continue the conversation. This is an important speaking skill because real conversations are not always fast and perfect. Sometimes you need time. Sometimes you forget a word. Sometimes you change your sentence halfway through, and that's okay. Fluent speakers do this too. The goal is not to speak without ever stopping. The goal is to know what to do when you need a moment. So if you forget a word, try a simpler word. If you make a mistake, correct yourself and continue. If you need time, use a natural phrase and keep the conversation moving. For example, "Let me think for a second. I'm not sure how to explain it." What I mean is, "Let me say that another way." These little phrases can give you something very valuable: time. And sometimes, just having 2 or 3 phrases ready can make you feel much more confident in a real conversation. Now bring this back into your daily life. Imagine you're talking to someone at work, at a coffee shop, or even chatting with a friend. They ask you something unexpected. You don't understand the question completely. Instead of panicking, you think, "Okay, let me stay calm." Then you say, "Could you say that one more time?" They repeat it. Now you understand. "Oh, okay, I understand what you mean." That's communication. Not perfect grammar, not difficult vocabulary, just understanding, responding, and staying present. And every time you handle a small moment like this in English, you're teaching your brain something important. I can stay in English. Now, let's continue with another natural situation. Imagine you're talking about your progress with a friend. They ask, "Do you feel more confident speaking English now?" Listen to your answer. "Yes, I do. I still make mistakes sometimes, but I don't feel as nervous as I used to. I can usually find a way to explain what I mean." Now, shadow it. "Yes, I do. I still make mistakes sometimes, but I don't feel as nervous as I used to. I can usually find a way to explain what I mean." That's a powerful way to think about fluency. You don't always need the exact word. You need the ability to keep going. And the more you practice explaining simple ideas in different ways, the more flexible your English becomes. Now, imagine you're sitting quietly again at the end of the day. You think about everything you practiced. You remember the moments when you understood something faster. You remember a sentence you were finally able to say without translating. And maybe you realize something small has changed. You're not waiting for perfect English anymore. You're actually using the English you already have. Listen, I don't need to know every word. I just need to keep communicating. I can speak simply and still express myself clearly. I can make mistakes and keep going. Now, shadow it with me. I don't need to know every word. I just need to keep communicating. I can speak simply and still express myself clearly. I can make mistakes and keep going. And that's the kind of confidence that grows through real practice. Not overnight, not because you memorized one difficult vocabulary list, but because, little by little, English starts becoming something you actually use in your everyday life. And once that begins to happen, even ordinary moments can become English practice. While you're walking, while you're cooking, while you're waiting, while you're thinking, and even when you're simply sitting quietly and noticing what's happening around you. So let's stay with that idea for a moment and move into another real-life situation where you can use these skills naturally. I watch fluent speakers. I notice their tone, their expressions, and their body language. Everything teaches me something. And there is one thing worth remembering here. You don't have to copy a fluent speaker perfectly. Instead, listen for the patterns they use again and again. Notice how they start a sentence, how they connect ideas, and how they pause when they need a moment. That kind of observation can make your listening much more useful because you're learning not only what people say, but also how they say it. Now, let's bring that skill into another ordinary moment. Imagine you're getting ready for the day. You're preparing your things, checking your phone, and thinking about what you need to do. Listen. I'm getting ready for the day. As I organize my things, I am practicing English silently in my mind. I am rehearsing simple sentences, planning what I want to say, and preparing myself to communicate confidently. Now, shadow it with me. I am getting ready. I am organizing my things. I am practicing English in my mind. I am rehearsing simple sentences. I am preparing myself to communicate confidently. Notice how simple this is. You're not sitting at a desk with a grammar book. You're using English while you're already doing something you normally do. That's what makes this habit powerful. The next time you're getting ready, don't try to create a complicated English lesson in your head. Just describe what you're already doing. I'm looking for my keys. I need to leave soon. I don't want to be late. I still have a few things to do. These are small sentences, but they're connected to real moments in your life. And when English is connected to real moments, it becomes easier to remember and easier to use. Now imagine someone asks you what part of English you enjoy the most. Listen to this natural answer. I enjoy the feeling of expressing myself clearly. When I find the right words and my message comes out smoothly, it makes me feel strong and capable. Now shadow it. I enjoy expressing myself clearly. I like finding the right words. I like when my message comes out smoothly. It makes me feel strong and capable. And notice the feeling behind these sentences. You're not just talking about vocabulary, you're talking about what English allows you to do. That matters because confidence grows when you can see a reason behind your practice. Maybe you want to speak more comfortably at work. Maybe you want to have easier conversations with friends. Maybe you want to travel without feeling nervous. Or maybe you simply want to stop thinking, I know what I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. Whatever your reason is, keep it close to you. A clear reason can make it easier to stay consistent when motivation is low. Now let's take that idea one step further. One thing I have learned is that fluency isn't about speaking fast. It's about speaking clearly, expressing ideas confidently, and connecting your thoughts naturally. Speed comes later, but clarity comes first. Now, let's take that same idea a little deeper, because real fluency is not only about knowing more English, it is also about becoming comfortable using the English you already know, especially when a conversation feels important. Learning English has taught me patience. It has taught me to trust my abilities, believe in progress, and keep going even when things feel difficult. Now shadow it with me. Learning English has taught me patience.
It has taught me to trust myself. I believe in progress. I keep going even when things feel difficult. And notice how useful these sentences are outside an English lesson. You can use this kind of language when you're talking about your goals, your work, your studies, or something personal that you're working through. You are not just learning vocabulary, you're learning how to express your experience, and that is a big part of sounding natural. Sometimes you won't know the perfect word. That's okay. You can still explain what you mean. You can still share how you feel. You can still keep the conversation moving. That ability to communicate with the English you already have is what slowly builds real confidence. So as we continue, don't worry about sounding perfect. Pay attention to how the sentences connect, how the ideas move from one thought to another, and how you can use the same patterns in your own life. Now, imagine someone asks you how English fits into your daily life. Listen to this natural response. English has become a quiet part of my day. I use it when I think, when I plan, and even when I imagine future conversations in English. It helps me stay connected to the language in a simple, natural way. Now, shadow it. English has become a quiet part of my day. I use it when I think. I use it when I plan. I imagine future conversations in English. It helps me stay connected to the language. Now make it personal. Think about one part of your day where you could use English more often. Maybe while you're getting ready. Maybe while you're driving or walking. Maybe while you're cooking dinner. Maybe while you're waiting for someone. You don't need a long lesson. You can simply think, I'm getting ready for work. I need to leave soon. I have a busy day ahead. I'll practice English later. Those tiny moments may seem unimportant, but they give your brain repeated contact with English throughout the day. And when you repeat useful English in real situations, you're much more likely to remember it when you actually need it. Now, let's bring this into a situation where confidence really matters. Imagine you have an important conversation coming up. Maybe it's a job interview. Maybe it's a meeting at work. Maybe you're meeting someone new. Or maybe you're simply talking to someone you really want to communicate well with. Before the conversation, you feel a little nervous. Instead of letting that nervous feeling take control, you can prepare yourself with simple English. Listen. Before an important conversation, I like to remind myself to stay calm. I take a deep breath, think about what I want to say, and trust that my practice will support me. Now shadow it with me. Before an important conversation, I remind myself to stay calm. I take a deep breath, think about what I want to say, and trust that my practice will support me. I don't need to be perfect, I just need to communicate clearly. I trust my practice. I trust myself. That last part is important. Because sometimes the problem isn't that you don't know enough English. Sometimes you know the words, but anxiety makes it difficult to access them quickly. That's why practicing calm, simple responses can help. You are training yourself to think, I can handle this. Now, imagine the conversation begins. Someone asks, so, tell me a little about yourself. You don't need a complicated answer. You can start naturally. Sure, I'm currently working on improving my English, and I've been practicing every day. I enjoy learning new things, and I'm trying to become more confident when I communicate with people. Now shadow it slowly. Sure, I'm currently working on improving my English. I've been practicing every day. I enjoy learning new things, and I'm trying to become more confident when I communicate with people. Notice how these sentences give you a structure. You don't have to invent everything from zero. You can use familiar patterns and change the details depending on the situation. That's one of the secrets of natural speaking. You learn useful patterns and then you make them your own. Now, imagine the person asks you something you don't understand. Don't freeze. Stay in English. You can say, "I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?" Or, "Could you say that a little more slowly?" Or, if you need a moment, "Let me think about that for a second." These are not signs of weak English, they're communication tools, and knowing what to say when you need time can make you feel much more in control. So let's practice that feeling one more time. I don't understand the question yet. That's okay. I'll ask them to repeat it. I'll take a moment, then I'll answer. I can stay calm. I can communicate. I can keep going. And that's the skill we're building here. Not perfect English under perfect conditions, but the ability to stay in English when real life doesn't go exactly as planned. Now, take that confidence with you into the next situation because we're going to make the conversation a little more natural, a little less predictable, and much closer to the kind of English you may actually hear and use in everyday life. Now, shadow it with me. I stay calm. I take a deep breath. I think about what I want to say. I trust my practice. And notice what these sentences are really teaching you. They are not just English sentences. They give you something to say when your mind feels nervous or you need a moment before speaking. That matters because real conversations don't always happen when you're perfectly prepared. Sometimes someone asks you a question unexpectedly. Sometimes you feel nervous. Sometimes the right word doesn't come immediately. In those moments, staying calm is part of speaking well. So instead of thinking, "I can't speak English," try thinking, "I just need a moment." I can keep it simple. I know enough to explain my idea. That small change in your thinking can make a big difference. Now imagine you're noticing your own progress more clearly. Listen, I can see how my English is improving. I respond faster, I understand more naturally, and I feel more confident expressing my ideas. Now shadow it. I can see my improvement. I respond faster. I understand more naturally. I feel more confident expressing my ideas. And don't worry if you don't feel a huge difference every day. Progress in English can be very quiet. One day you suddenly understand a sentence that used to sound too fast. Another day you answer a question without translating first. Maybe you have a conversation and realize afterward, "I didn't feel as nervous this time." Those moments matter. They're signs that your practice is working. Now let's turn that feeling into a small story from your everyday life. Imagine this morning. You have a cup of tea or coffee in front of you. The day hasn't become busy yet. You have a few quiet minutes to yourself. Listen. This morning, I sat quietly with my cup of tea and used that moment to practice some English. Even a few minutes made me feel focused and ready for the day. Now shadow it. This morning, I sat quietly. I practiced some English. I had a few quiet minutes. It helped me feel focused. I felt ready for the day. This is the kind of English you can actually use because it describes something real, and you can change the details to match your own life. Maybe you had coffee instead of tea. Maybe you were sitting on the bus. Maybe you were getting ready for work. You could say, "I was getting ready for work while practicing English in my mind." Or, "I listened to English on my way to work." Or simply, "I had a few minutes, so I practiced some English." You don't need a special situation to practice. Your normal day is enough. And that's one of the easiest ways to make English part of your routine without adding another stressful task to your schedule. Now imagine someone asks you why you use shadowing as a technique. Listen,
Shadowing helps me because it trains my brain to follow the natural flow of English. I learn not just the words, but also the rhythm, the tone, and the way sentences connect. Now, shadow it with me. Shadowing trains my brain. I learn the rhythm. I learn the tone. I notice how sentences connect. I don't just learn words, I learn how English sounds and flows. And here's something important. When you shadow, don't worry about copying every sound perfectly. First, listen. Then, try to match the rhythm. Notice where the speaker pauses. Notice which words sound stronger. Notice how one word connects naturally to the next. That is how you begin to move away from textbook English and toward the rhythm of real spoken English. Now let's bring this into another everyday situation. Imagine you're watching something online in English. Maybe it's a short video, an interview, a podcast, or even a TV show. Instead of trying to understand every single word, listen for one useful phrase. Listen. When I watch videos in English, I try to listen carefully to the expressions people use. I repeat some of their phrases in my mind and practice using them later. Now, shadow it. I listen carefully. I notice useful expressions. I repeat them in my mind. I practice using them later. This is a much better way to learn from real English because you're not trying to collect hundreds of random words. You're collecting phrases you can actually use. For example, if you hear someone say, "I'm just getting ready to head out," don't only learn the words, imagine yourself saying it tomorrow morning. "I'm just getting ready to head out." Now it has a situation, it has a meaning, and it becomes easier to remember. That's how vocabulary becomes speaking ability. Now imagine you're walking outside at sunset. The day is ending. Maybe you're tired, but your mind feels calm. Listen. I am taking a slow walk as the day ends. The sky looks warm, and I am thinking about how I want to continue improving my English tomorrow. Now shadow it. I am taking a slow walk. The sky looks warm. The day is coming to an end. I am thinking about tomorrow. I want to keep improving my English. And you can make this even more personal. Look around you and describe what you actually see. The sky looks beautiful. It's getting a little cooler. There are people walking around. I feel tired, but I feel good. I'm thinking about tomorrow. This simple habit turns your surroundings into speaking practice. You don't need to wait until you're sitting in front of a lesson. You can practice while life is happening around you. And now, as you continue this practice, I want you to think about one question that can make your English journey feel much more personal. Why does speaking English matter to you? Maybe your answer is connected to your work. Maybe it's about meeting new people. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you simply want to feel proud when you speak. Hold that reason in your mind because we're going to turn it into English together. Now shadow it with me. Shadowing trains my brain. I learn the rhythm, I learn the tone. I notice how sentences connect. I don't just learn words, I learn how English sounds and flows. And here's something important. When you shadow, don't worry about copying every sound perfectly. First, listen. Then, try to match the rhythm. Notice where the speaker pauses. Notice which words sound stronger. Notice how one word connects naturally to the next. That is how you begin to move away from textbook English and toward the rhythm of real spoken English. Now, let's bring this into another everyday situation. Imagine you're watching something online in English. Maybe it's a short video, an interview, a podcast, or even a TV show. Instead of trying to understand every single word, listen for one useful phrase. Listen. When I watch videos in English, I try to listen carefully to the expressions people use. I repeat some of their phrases in my mind and practice using them later. Now, shadow it. I listen carefully. I notice useful expressions. I repeat them in my mind. I practice using them later. This is a much better way to learn from real English because you're not trying to collect hundreds of random words. You're collecting phrases you can actually use. For example, if you hear someone say, "I'm just getting ready to head out," don't only learn the words, imagine yourself saying it tomorrow morning. "I'm just getting ready to head out." Now it has a situation, it has a meaning, and it becomes easier to remember. That's how vocabulary becomes speaking ability. Now, imagine you're walking outside at sunset. The day is ending. Maybe you're tired, but your mind feels calm. Listen. I am taking a slow walk as the day ends. The sky looks warm, and I am thinking about how I want to continue improving my English tomorrow. Now, shadow it. I am taking a slow walk. The sky looks warm. The day is coming to an end. I am thinking about tomorrow. I want to keep improving my English. And you can make this even more personal. Look around you and describe what you actually see. The sky looks beautiful. It's getting a little cooler. There are people walking around. I feel tired, but I feel good. I'm thinking about tomorrow. This simple habit turns your surroundings into speaking practice. You don't need to wait until you're sitting in front of a lesson. You can practice while life is happening around you. And now, as you continue this practice, I want you to think about one question that can make your English journey feel much more personal. Why does speaking English matter to you? Maybe your answer is connected to your work. Maybe it's about meeting new people. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you simply want to feel proud when you speak. Hold that reason in your mind because we're going to turn it into English together. Now, shadow it with me. Shadowing trains my brain. I learn the rhythm, I learn the tone. I notice how sentences connect. I don't just learn words, I learn how English sounds and flows. And here's something important. When you shadow, don't worry about copying every sound perfectly. First, listen. Then, try to match the rhythm. Notice where the speaker pauses. Notice which words sound stronger. Notice how one word connects naturally to the next. That is how you begin to move away from textbook English and toward the rhythm of real spoken English. Now let's bring this into another everyday situation. Imagine you're watching something online in English. Maybe it's a short video, an interview, a podcast, or even a TV show. Instead of trying to understand every single word, listen for one useful phrase. Listen. When I watch videos in English, I try to listen carefully to the expressions people use. I repeat some of their phrases in my mind and practice using them later. Now, shadow it. I listen carefully. I notice useful expressions. I repeat them in my mind. I practice using them later. This is a much better way to learn from real English because you're not trying to collect hundreds of random words. You're collecting phrases you can actually use. For example, if you hear someone say, "I'm just getting ready to head out," don't only learn the words. Imagine yourself saying it tomorrow morning. "I'm just getting ready to head out." Now it has a situation, it has a meaning, and it becomes easier to remember. That's how vocabulary becomes speaking ability. Now imagine you're walking outside at sunset. The day is ending. Maybe you're tired, but your mind feels calm. Listen. I am taking a slow walk as the day ends. The sky looks warm, and I am thinking about how I want to continue improving my English tomorrow. Now shadow it. I am taking a slow walk. The sky looks warm. The day is coming to an end. I am thinking about tomorrow. I want to keep improving my English. And you can make this even more personal. Look around you and describe what you actually see. The sky looks beautiful. It's getting a little cooler. There are people walking around. I feel tired, but I feel good. I'm thinking about tomorrow. This simple habit turns your surroundings into speaking practice. You don't need to wait until you're sitting in front of a lesson. You can practice while life is happening around you. And now, as you continue this practice, I want you to think about one question that can make your English journey feel much more personal. Why does speaking English matter to you? Maybe your answer is connected to your work. Maybe it's about meeting new people. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you simply want to feel proud when you speak. Hold that reason in your mind because we're going to turn it into English together.
This slow, steady development is what builds long-term fluency, and you're doing it right now simply by staying present, listening carefully, and giving yourself permission to learn without rushing. As you continue, remember something important. You don't have to notice progress every single day. Sometimes the change is happening quietly in the background. Then one day you understand a sentence that used to sound difficult, or you answer someone without translating first. Those small moments are worth noticing. Now, imagine someone asks how English helps you in your daily life. Listen, English helps me express myself more clearly. It gives me more confidence when I interact with people, and it helps me understand information from many different sources. Now, shadow it with me. English helps me express myself. It gives me more confidence. It helps me understand more information. It helps me connect with people. And think about your own life for a moment. Where would better English make your day easier? Maybe at work, maybe when you're traveling, maybe when you're meeting new people, maybe when you're watching something online and want to understand it without constantly translating. That reason can become your motivation. Now, let's think about the future. Imagine yourself speaking English a few months from now. You're having a conversation, and instead of planning every sentence in your head, the words come more naturally. Listen, one of my long-term goals is to become a confident English speaker who can communicate naturally in different situations. I want to use a new vocabulary smoothly and express my thoughts clearly. Now, shadow it. My long-term goal is confidence. I want to communicate naturally. I want to use new vocabulary smoothly. I want to express my thoughts clearly. Notice the pattern here. I want to. You can use this structure for almost any personal goal. I want to speak more clearly. I want to understand conversations better. I want to feel less nervous. I want to communicate with confidence. Simple structures become powerful when you make them personal. Now, let's bring English into another ordinary moment. Imagine you're preparing lunch. You're cutting vegetables, getting things ready, and moving around the kitchen. Listen, I am cutting vegetables right now. While I cook, I am practicing English silently. I am describing what I am doing, noticing the sounds around me, and using this time to train my mind. Now, shadow it with me. I notice new words. I pay attention to the context. I listen to the tone. I notice the feeling behind the words, and I try to understand the message as a whole. This is an important listening habit because you do not need to understand every single word to understand what someone means. When you focus on context, tone, and the situation, unfamiliar words become easier to understand naturally. Now imagine someone asks you how you feel when you speak English now compared to before. Listen, I feel more confident now. I think less about speaking perfect English and more about expressing my ideas clearly. Communication is my main focus. Now, shadow it. I feel more confident. I focus on expressing my ideas. Communication is my main focus. Notice how natural this sounds. You don't have to say something complicated to sound confident. Sometimes confidence comes from saying a simple idea clearly and continuing the conversation. Now, let's take that idea a little deeper. Imagine you're in a real conversation. You don't know the perfect word, but you know what you want to say. Instead of freezing, you keep going. Listen, I am learning to trust my voice more. I am becoming less afraid of sounding imperfect, and I am more interested in being clear, honest, and confident when I speak. Now shadow it. I trust my voice. I am less afraid of making mistakes. I want to be clear. I want to be honest. I want to speak with confidence. And remember, real conversations are not tests. You don't have to sound perfect. You just need to make your meaning clear. If you forget a word, explain it another way. If you make a grammar mistake, keep going. If you need a second to think, take that second. That ability to stay calm is part of fluency too. Now, let's bring this feeling into the end of your day. Imagine you're getting ready for bed, the room is quiet, your day is almost over, and you think about the English you practiced. Listen, as I get ready to sleep, I think about the English I practiced today, and even if it wasn't much, I still feel proud of myself for trying. Now shadow it. I get ready to sleep. I think about my English practice. I feel proud of myself. Even a little practice counts. That last sentence is worth remembering. Even a little practice counts, because some days you will have a lot of time. Other days, you may only have 5 minutes. You don't need to make every practice session perfect. You just need to keep the habit alive. Now, imagine you hear a difficult word during a conversation. Now shadow it with me. I slow down. I repeat the sound gently. I let my mouth learn the movement step by step. And I don't get frustrated when a sound feels difficult. I simply try again. That's an important part of speaking clearly. You don't need to force your pronunciation. Give your mouth time to become familiar with the sounds, and with repetition, they begin to feel easier. And take a moment to notice how much you've practiced throughout this lesson. You started by listening carefully. Then you practiced daily life sentences. You described your morning, your work, your feelings, and your goals. You practiced vocabulary, pronunciation, connected speech, listening, and real-life conversations. More importantly, you practiced staying in English instead of immediately translating everything in your head. That is the real skill we have been building. You don't need to remember every sentence today. You don't need to speak perfectly tomorrow. What matters is that you keep using English in small moments throughout your day. When you wake up, describe what you're doing. When you're walking, describe what you see. When you're working, think about what you need to do. When you're relaxing, talk to yourself in simple English. And when you make a mistake, don't stop. Pause, correct yourself, and keep going. Because fluency grows when English becomes something you use, not just something you study. And here's something I want you to remember after this lesson. You may not notice a huge difference after one practice session, but if you come back to these sentences again and again, something interesting starts to happen. The first time, you may need to think about every word. The second time, the sentences begin to feel familiar. And after enough repetition, some of them start coming to you without so much effort. That's why I recommend watching this lesson again. Don't watch it like a movie. On your second watch, try to speak every sentence out loud. On your third watch, try to speak before I finish the sentence. And then, when you feel ready, pause the video and create your own sentence using the same pattern. That's where passive learning starts becoming real speaking practice.
So if you're watching this lesson tomorrow, don't worry about doing everything perfectly. Just come back, listen, speak, and notice what feels easier than it did today. And if you made it this far, I want you to leave one simple comment. I am becoming more confident in English. Writing that sentence is a small practice too. And if this lesson helped you, subscribe to Fluentcore English and come back for more calm, practical English practice with Gwen. Keep listening, keep speaking, keep showing up. Because every small moment you spend in English is helping you build a stronger, more natural voice. And the next time someone speaks to you in English, don't rush to translate. Take a breath, listen for the meaning, trust what you know, and let your English come to you.